From grocery shopping, to eating out, to making investments. Technology powers digital lifestyles across the region. Nearly everyone in Singapore has embraced cashless payments, and almost 1 in 5 say they don't use cash at all. But what happens when the technology fails?
The regulators take a very, very dim view on bank payment services not being available. The real issue here is not so much whether the payment is available or not, it's the fact that as we've become digital, we've relied on standing orders, we've relied on wages and payments to go into accounts. It's those sorts of inconveniences which, are subject to these sorts of regulation.
Such outages have also increased in frequency in recent years. In 2 separate incidents in 2019 and 2021, UOB customers were unable to access ATMs, card payments, internet banking, and mobile application services. In November 2021, DBS customers couldn't log into their accounts due to a problem with the bank's servers. The outage lasted 2 days. And in March 2023, a day-long disruption of DBS digital banking services earned a stern rebuke from the Monetary Authority of Singapore, who said the bank had fallen short of expectations.
I think sadly, we have somehow gotten used to it, right? Because things will break down, and when they do, of course, customers get frustrated. But especially in Singapore, when the market is so small, what can we do? I mean, there are only a few big banks in Singapore. Even those taxi apps, right? There are only a few. Even if you don't like it, you don't really have an option. I think consumers are, they can lament, but they have accepted that these kind of things do happen.
For consumers, it's still possible to avoid inconvenience by continuing to carry around some cash. For businesses, though, a delay in payments could have bigger consequences.
Of course, we want to collect our cash in a very orderly manner. So, and cash flow is also very important to any business. You do have, I think, what we call a reservoir, some cash actually to tie over. So that happens actually when, of course, when cash flow is tight, for example, in any business. But, well, we do experience sometimes if the large sum of money is not collected properly and promptly, and that may be potentially some hazards out there. For example, if all this cash doesn't come back, or payment doesn't come back on Christmas or even CNY, all these festive orders, I think that will also give us a lot of inconvenience, because all this cumulative outstanding will also becomes a delay in the supplier's payment as well.
Mr. Tan is also concerned that with the phasing out of checks, customers will have fewer recourses if their apps aren't working. But he has prepared some contingencies.
We must always have a plan B. Just like, for example, if our house suddenly runs out of electricity and you on the switch and there's a power trip or it's a major failure, we always have our candle standby. So a plan B means to say that we will still have some paper invoice or whatever as a standby. Or even we may have some other relationships with other banks, for example. If one bank fails, we have other relationships with other banks, so we're able to mitigate all these issues.
Experts say such diversification by using multiple apps and having accounts in different banks is very important for all consumers.
I know a lot of Singaporeans, they cannot imagine a day they witness a bank run. But the recent events in the US has shown us that it can happen. So there are many good reasons not to just keep all your funds with one bank. At least if one bank fails, maybe not a bank run, but like the recent outage, and you have to make payments, then you have alternative, right? But if really a bank fails, then at least you are protected somehow. So I think diversification is key.
Despite this, experts don't think that customers will switch their banks solely based on these incidents.
The reality is, we'll always go back to the big banking institutions for trust-based services. And by a factor of 2/3, we trust banks to provide payments more so than we do other fintech providers of digital wallets. Now, that is because a lot of these newer brands, they haven't got the heritage or the long-term sort of customer relationships that we've had and that we've grown up with over time. So I think there's going to be a generational shift yet required for us to be, faithful to the big payment services providers or the so-called pays that sit on our mobile phone.
However, the onus remains with the users to protect themselves and keep track of their financial accounts and transactions.
What do all these outages mean? Could it be that the system breaks down so much that when it's up again, your numbers in your bank account has changed? And nowadays we don't track them. We trust our financial institutions so much. We don't really on a monthly basis check what goes out, what goes in. What if the numbers change somewhat and you cannot remember? Right? I think that's a bigger concern. I have a few $100,000 inside, and then when it's up again, I may lose 10,000. I wouldn't notice losing 10,000 if I've got a few $100,000 inside, right? So I think that's a bigger concern. And the other bigger concern, of course, would be cybersecurity. Failures of this system, what do they mean? Is there a possibility that one day hackers go in and then my money somehow is gone?